In the spirit of Halloween, paranormal or not, what is the scariest, creepiest or most unsettling experience of your life? I'm a funeral director and embalmer, and the strangest thing that has happened to me was having a box thrown at my back from across the room. I was the only one in the building and the box was 10 feet off the ground and probably 10 to 15 feet away from where I was. I was an RA for a year when I was in college. It was at a large Midwest university that has very large dorms. Being an RA wasn't really for me, so I wasn't returning for a second year. At the end of the spring semester, everyone was to be moved out by a certain date, but my apartment wouldn't be ready. It'd move into for a week. I asked my boss if I could stay in the dorm for an extra week instead of moving all my stuff 2 hours away, then moving it back the next week. It actually worked out great because there were some projects she needed done and I could do them while I stayed there. I was the only person in this massive dorm. She also gave me a key that worked for any lock in the building. About halfway through the week I was bored to death, so I called a few friends that were still in town and invited them over to drink beer and eat pizza. This dorm was unique in the fact that while being built there was a massive boulder in the way while building the foundation. Instead of blasting and removing it, they just built a room around it. It was known to the people that worked there as the Rock Room. Now it wasn't very scary itself and I had been in it before, but it was in the sub-basement. Well, about 2 or 3 in the morning I asked my friends if they wanted to go down and explore since I had a key for everything. The area around the Rock Room was mostly just pipes and boilers and it was pretty dark in there. We went into the Rock Room and looked around a bit. My friends were interested because they had never heard of it. Well, when we came out of the room, 4 people came out behind the boilers and walked past us and up the spiral staircase. They never once looked at us or acknowledged us even though we are only about 5 feet away from them. I believe there were 2 men and 2 women, middle-aged and in plain dress. I've never been so spooked in my life. We went back upstairs about 5 minutes after them and there was no sign of them. We didn't call the police because we weren't supposed to be down there either. The next day I mentioned to a physical plant guy that there were a few people that I saw come out of the basement and he freaked out. It gives me chills just writing this. A few years ago, me and a couple of friends were driving back from Goa in the middle of the night. It must have been around 3 in the morning. It was pitch dark and we were on a single lane road. The 3 guys in the back seat were asleep, I was in the front seat and another friend was driving. It was really quiet given it was 3 in the morning. I remember thinking to myself there were suddenly a lot of dogs barking. Up in the distance I saw this white figure standing in the middle of the road, eye headlight just standing there. It looked like an old man. As we drove up closer he just disappeared. I was pretty freaked out but didn't say anything because I thought I was sleep deprived. That's when my friend turned to me and said, "What the fuck was that?" When we turned back to look, it was there again. We drove so fast away from that place we woke up everyone else in the car. I used to work at summer camps, and I also used to sleepwalk. One night I woke up in the middle of the woods, at like 2:30 in the morning, with no flashlight or pants. I could tell I was on a trail, but not which one. I walked until I saw a latrine lantern, which I borrowed for the night to get back to the staff site. But I was kinda fumbling through the woods for a good 45 minutes before I saw the light. I think I've posted this before, but I have 3 very scary stories in my life. This is the first. I was 12 years old and living in a rambling 2-story house pushed up against a dark forest. One night my parents decided to go out, leaving me and my best friend in charge of my 2 little brothers. It's worth pointing out that earlier in the day I had noticed one of my brother's birthday balloons was deflated in the bottom of the upstairs bathroom. His birthday was a number of days earlier. Anyway, long story short, it was about 9:30 and my brothers were asleep and my friend and I were watching TV when we saw the balloon, now reinflated, come floating down the stairs and stop in front of the TV. We freaked the fuck out because in order to do that the balloon not only needed to re-inflate but it had to rise out of the bathtub, float out of the bathroom and do a 90-degree turn into the hallway and then do another 90-degree turn down the stairs, avoiding the open doors of 2 upstairs bedrooms. Once down the stairs, it had to do an almost 180-degree turn to get to where we were watching TV. It then floated right in front of us for a few minutes before we killed it with a kitchen knife. Being the brave souls that we were, we then waited for my parents outside, leaving my brother sleeping inside to deal with the now released and angry poltergeist. They survived. Smile. During military service, a fellow squadmate died with a serious sickness. He was well liked and he was very skillful. He could kill you while you blinked. After his death I was promoted to his position. 5 weeks after his death we were deployed in a village with a lot of unrest. When I turned a corner, 2 men with rifles pointed at me were screaming at me to hand over my AK. I refused and a standoff commenced. Suddenly they ran away. After we caught them I asked them what made them run away. Apparently they saw an angel-like figure. When I asked them what the angel looked like they perfectly described the squadmate. 35 years later I still can't believe what happened. And I don't know whether to believe it or not. It's not as frightening as some of these other stories, but nevertheless I was terrified when it happened. My parents and I just moved into this awesome new house where I ended up having my own bathroom. I was 8 at the time and we lived in an apartment before, so this was a big deal. I was so excited to be able to have this whole bathroom to myself that the first thing I wanted to do was take a bath. Now my dad had told me that the previous owners didn't use the bathroom for some reason, but I didn't think much of it. I ended up turning on the faucet to the bathtub and immediately millions of ants started to fill up the bathtub. I got so scared that I ended up leaving the faucet of hell on, resulting in a tub filled with ants that started overflowing onto the bathroom floor. I run to my dad screaming and crying about what had just happened. He ended up running in there and turning the faucet off, then just closed the door and put a towel underneath. Later, we ended up buying a lot of ant killer and just tossing it in there, which worked pretty well. However, every time I turned on the faucet for about a month I would still see some ants come pouring out. Still one of my freakiest memories to date. Not sure if this counts, but about a week ago my neighbors tried to get into my apartment. My husband and I live upstairs from a business in a smallish 1-bedroom apartment. Not a bad neighborhood, but our landlord rented the apartment next door to 2 sketchy-looking guys. I didn't mind them at first, but they knew which car was mine and which was my husband's, who works for a local news station and leaves for work at about 4 a.m. Last Friday my husband leaves for work and I go lay in bed and the neighbors start running up and down the stairs outside. They must have seen my husband's car was gone and came back up. It gets quiet and then there's a knock at the door. I kind of sat up in bed and a few minutes pass. The next thing I hear is one of them slam themselves into my front door. I jump out of bed, immediately grab my phone and the closest weapon, and hide in the closet until the cops show up. That same day they just up and left. A few days later we got a dog as a guard/help with my anxiety, but haven't seen them since. Doctor, my entire vision went completely white for about a half a second without any reason. Friend with me confirmed he also experienced it at the same time. Was chilling in the garage at my friend's house one summer day. Sun was blazing around 2 in the afternoon. One garage door was closed, and one was open, lighting up the garage plenty enough to see without any lights on. Direct sunlight was not coming into the garage. At this point it was just me and one other friend sitting across from each other in the circle of fold-up chairs. I was facing towards the open garage door, and he was facing towards the back of the garage. We were just talking about random stuff. There was a lull in the conversation and I was looking around, outside towards the driveway. Out of nowhere, my entire vision went completely white for about a half a second. It was like a camera flash went off, but the blinding white light lasted for a lot longer. It didn't hurt my eyes, but all I saw was white. It was so strange because our environment was already well lit. I figured something strange has just happened in my brain to cause it. About 10 seconds later my friend and I looked at each other. He asked if I just saw that and confirmed his vision also went completely white for a half a second. We both have no idea what happened. Not exactly scary, but a group of friends and I saw a basketball-sized floating, glowing orange sphere pass us on the highway at about head level going hundreds of miles per hour in the opposite direction of us. It was definitely unsettling given that I have no idea what it was and would probably have caused a lethal collision had we hit it.